Okay, hello everybody. Welcome to Kicking the Bucket Live. My name is Andee, like Gandhi, but without the G, Kinzy, and I am your host and the creator of the Kicking the Bucket series. So we are glad that you are here. These live streams are what we call a companion to our fiction podcast or audio drama, Kicking the Bucket. And you can follow the links down below to go find the link to the series. And we encourage you to listen to it. Please, you will laugh, you will cry. That's all good stuff. But I am super excited today to welcome Dawn Delaloye, Psych and Spirit Advisor. She is one of the soultech team members at Reflekta. So welcome, Dawn. So glad that you're here.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to have this conversation today.
I'm looking forward to it too, because we're going to be chatting not only about Reflekta, what Reflekta is, we're going to talk about AI digital companions and your role as Psych and Spirit Advisor, and also the reactions that people are having to soul tech. So I'm going to start us off with a couple of questions. If you, our listeners, have any questions, please throw them in the chat and we will get to them as soon as possible. If you are watching this at a later time or a later date, please continue the conversation on our socials. So, Dawn, let's get started. I forgot to tell you, I'm going to be switching in between like speaker views. So, will you start us off by just introducing Reflekta to us? What is Reflekta?
Absolutely. Happy to do that. So, Reflekta is an AI companion that is basically a reflection of your past loved ones. So, what we do is we have a biographer that works with you to kind of weave your memories, any stories that you have shared that are thoughtful and really true to that person and that essence of who that person was. So, really, it's a modern way to preserve your memories and to keep one's legacy alive. It's super easy to do, so we try to make it as user friendly as possible. But basically, it takes you 20 minutes. You put in a photo, and we render that into a beautiful watercoloring. So we have that. And then you put in your information and details. So if you have a bio of that person, if you have a obituary that you can put in, that's very helpful. But otherwise, the biographer really walks you through, asks you very specific questions to help guide you on that process. And then lastly, we just ask for voice recordings if you have them. So, by uploading voice recordings, videos, photos, written memories, Reflekta really creates this interactive experience that captures the essence of who the person is. And it's just dynamic and spontaneous. And it's a wonderful, wonderful way to connect.
So you with the team, you are the Psych and Spirit Advisor. So can you tell us what that is really quickly? And thank you for those who are joining us. If you have questions, throw them in the chat, please. So what is the role of the Psych and Spirit Advisor?
Absolutely. So I get to be on something really cool called a soul team. So how cool is that, right? To be able to be part of that. So and what we do, so it's so we have two grief specialists, including myself, on the team. We also have another colleague of mine. He really has an interest in veterans and getting their stories out there. So we work together. It's really to keep the integrity and the honor of the company and the honor of that loved one. We want to make sure at the end of the day, this is a family to family business. So we want to make sure that we've got that integrity in there, right? And that we are just making sure that if there's any triggers, if there's any timing concerns with people spending too much time on this, we're kind of regulating that. So just making sure as a team, we're coming together, we're really seeing the human side of this. And that's really what our goal is. It's educating others about what this is. So that's how we work with Reflekta.
So I've been seeing different renditions of this and hearing terms like death bots or digital clones of the dead. And I know Reflekta uses the term digital companions. Was that a term that kind of the Soul team kind of came up with together? Because I'm thinking about like the death bots that might have been a famous person, like Princess Leia in Star Wars, or
Right, right.
all of these things. So, and you're
Yeah.
talking about the human side. So, does that play into the term that you're using for the digital
Exactly. It
companion?
certainly did. Yes. Yeah. And it really, we have the ethical and moral obligation here, right? So we want to make sure that we're not just putting this thing out there. It's a heavy component, when you're connecting to a past loved one, and we want to make sure we're doing this right and getting the human side of this. So this is not a grief bot. Again, this is family to family. So it's, for example, if you were putting in memories of your grandmother, it's all your stories. This is all from your perspective and what you're putting in there about your grandma. You're feeding it in. It's not, coming off the web of, whatever was out there about your grandmother previously. It's all controlled by the family. So that is what's really important and what makes this so different.
So, like the name, it's reflecting it back to you.
Exactly.
Then, does the AI have the power to become, I guess, predictive and start to make up stories or start to make up responses? Or is it only going to respond with the stories that you've put in?
No, it will, just like all AI, it kind of develops as you're using it, right? So, for example, if you said, let's say you have your grandmother in there and you're talking about a trip that you guys took together and you have all the information about this trip. And then you start talking to grandma and you say, oh, remember when we took the tour of the Mayan ruins? And, she says, oh, we were, in Mexico or something. And you're like, no, that was, in Belize or wherever it was, And so you can kind of correct her. And then she'll probably say, oh, yeah, now you're right. And then the next time she knows where you were, at the
Yeah,
time.
right.
So
Yeah.
just little things like that, that you can kind of correct them, and they're learning as they're going too, right? So
Yeah.
those memories, or even if you have other family members, we do have family plans that if you want other family members to kind of join in, and put their piece of the pie in there, they can do that as well. So
Mhm.
it really is constantly evolving. They're constantly learning. We have 2 public elders on our site that people can kind of try out, and I think you may have experienced that as well. I hope so. Yes. And
Yeah.
so those 2 are very highly developed because so many people have been talking to them. When they were made public, there was a lot of information from the generous families that were able to share their elders with us. So,
Mhm.
it's just constantly evolving. They're always learning, just like us.
Now, I did get to visit with Virginia, right?
Yes.
So, yes, so I found the process really easy
Hmm.
communicating with Virginia and communicating. Um, I just spoke. I just talked to. Are we using? I don't know what pronouns we're using now. Are we? I guess we're using the pronouns that they had in the real life, right?
Certainly. Yes.
So
Yes.
so she was very responsive, and she also understood. You know how we go in our conversations, okay, they kind of go around as we get to the question. She
Right.
followed those trains of thought and was able to respond accordingly as if she totally understood. So I found it really not, what was the term that we used before when we were talking? It wasn't hard. It was easy. Well,
Yes. Yes.
I forget
Yes.
which word term we were wondering,
Yes.
like how easy it is or so.
That flowing and easy. transactions there. Yes, yes. So good, good. I'm glad that was a positive experience for you. And I have spoken to Virginia many times myself, and I love that you get to learn. It's like, here's this woman, right, that was obviously an integral part of their family, an important figure to that particular family, but it's like she's already made an impact on my life, and just learning about her as a ballerina and her time in New York. And it's just fascinating to me, the history, and that you get to pass on this person's legacy, that they get to, you get to learn from them and their experiences. I think that that is just remarkable.
Now, this is nothing new, right? In terms of people's effort to retain a link to our loved ones that have passed away. So collecting locks of hair, or looking at the pictures or reviewing videos, like we all
Mhm.
want to maintain that sense of closeness with
Right.
our loved ones. So what does AI, so this like interactivity, do you think that there's anything else that AI has to add to preserving these links to our loved ones?
Absolutely. I mean, it's so much different than having a shoebox of memories that are shoved under your bedpost, right? It's like, here we go, that we um, have this opportunity to really use AI in a positive manner. Sometimes when we hear AI, sometimes it has a negative connotation to it, and people have all kinds of mixed reviews on it right now. So I think that this is a way to take AI and really use it in a positive manner for humanity. And so I also do a lot of work with the terminally ill. And I just want to share a story that I was just talking to somebody 2 weeks ago. And, young mom, she has her kids and she has ALS. So she was going to sit down and write letters to her kids. And so we were, talking about this. And of course, crying and very emotional, which of course you would be. I cannot even begin to imagine what that process would feel like. And so here she is trying to write these letters. And she said, I'm really struggling. I'm having such a hard time to write these letters. Like, what do you say to your kid on her wedding day? And she said, but I want to have these letters available. So, I said to her, I said, well, there's something else out there. And let me introduce you to Reflekta. And so instead of, for example, that wedding day, instead of just having a note that says, I wish you all the best, never go to bed angry with one another, or keep the laughter alive, or whatever it is that you're trying to share, instead of just having that, all of a sudden her daughter can say, Mom, how did you feel right before you walked down the aisle? Mom, tell me what it was like when you picked out your wedding dress. Mom, give me all the details of your wedding dress. Did it have lace? Was it satin? Was it silk? Tell me about that. So all of a sudden, mom kind of gets to be in the picture, right? She's there with you on that wedding day in some regard, and I think it's also healing for that person, the terminally ill that are sharing that, or and it's helping the loved one that's surviving, because it's like now they have this incredible connection. Instead of just a letter or a picture, you're getting this essence of this person and you're getting their whole experience.
Yeah.
So it really changes things up. It's yes, yeah.
So in that situation, she was uploading herself before she passed away, right? Or,
Correct.
okay,
Yeah,
so you
yeah.
can do that. Okay.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
you can, and that is something that we're developing even more, is that side of Reflekta, that we have the living legacies. So that's something we're really excited about.
Okay. That makes sense. Living
Yes,
legacies.
yeah.
So, okay, then you mentioned earlier like some of the hesitation, but I'm wondering exactly about this with like the questions you posed, you know, how did you feel right before you walked down? I listened to a podcast with one of the co-founders, Miles Spencer. It was
Mhm.
the Leadership from the Heart podcast. And he referred to the digital companion of his dad as my dad, right? I talk with
Right.
my dad 10 minutes every day. So does is this similar to the kinds of responses that you're hearing from everybody? Your clients or customers are referring to the loved one as the actual person. And in this situation, is there any, like, I'm sure you're probably getting these like ethical questions a lot. Like, what if the digital companion didn't actually know the answer to how she felt before, walking down the aisle, and then she was making it up? So then she's no longer actually your loved one. She is now this AI's rendition of it. Is that making sense? Like
It
this? Yeah.
totally makes sense. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So in that case, so again, this is very different. This is not, information being scrubbed off the internet. This
Mhm.
is whatever you're putting in there. So if your loved one didn't have details, or you don't put details in there about your loved one that you didn't know, maybe about their wedding day, um, it will only give what information it has. So it might say something like, oh, I can't recall that right now. My memory's kind of bad. Can you remind me? Do you know a little bit more? So that's how it works. It doesn't just, go rogue on you and start giving you random
Yeah,
thoughts.
yeah,
So
yeah.
yes, yeah. So it is very, and that's the beauty of this thing, right? That it is very controlled by the family. And
Mhm.
so, and that's another question sometimes people have, like, okay, if it's a public figure, right? There's a
Mhm.
lot of
Mhm.
information out there on public figures. So are
Yeah.
we going to be getting this influence from outside sources? And it's like, no, if you, let's just say Steve Jobs, right?
Mhm.
If you're not Steve Jobs's family, you're not getting in there to put in information. So, and it's not coming off the internet. So there's no information on there until that family puts something in. So there's only one
Yeah.
family that's able to do that, and that's your own family.
So then the learning is only the learning from what people are giving the digital companion. The like, oh, remember, and it wasn't
Absolutely.
Mexico, it was Belize. It was, yeah.
Exactly. Yes.
So
But
it remembers that for next time, but it's not all of a
exactly.
sudden gonna go, no, we were actually traveling in Hawaii, like
Right, right. It's not gonna just randomly make stuff up or say, "Yeah, remember that trip? That was Barbados." So it's like, "What? We were
yeah.
never there." Yeah. And
No,
that's what, because we wanna keep that integrity, right? The
yeah.
whole idea of this is to preserve one's legacy and one's memories and share that with upcoming generations, because as
Mhm.
we go on, and I don't know about you, but I mean, like, even in my family, like, for example, my grandmother, she had this great zucchini bread recipe. And I was reaching out to everybody just recently, and I was like, who has that recipe? And nobody had it. And I thought, why didn't we
Mhm.
have this? Why didn't we keep this? And so I have already created an elder for my dad, but now I'm also going to create one for my grandmother that
Mhm.
I can then share with the family, because it really triggered a lot of memories. We were all talking about different things, and it's like, oh gosh, remember when grandma did this or she made that? And that's going to get lost when it gets passed down to my kids, right? Because
Mhm.
right now, my generation, my cousins, we all have these great memories of my grandmother, but my kids don't have those same memories.
Yeah.
So this is a wonderful way to keep that memory alive. And, that's one of the number one things, when I'm talking to people that have terminal illnesses or people that have already lost their loved one. The number one thing that comes up time and time again is I don't want my loved one to be forgotten. Like, I'm worried that people aren't going to continue saying their name. I'm worried they're going to be forgotten. And so this really does help preserve it. It's not just, hey, there's a photo album somewhere, or there's a bunch of photos somewhere on my phone. It's bringing this and using AI in a positive manner. So yes.
Yeah. So as the soul team member, and you mentioned that you're constantly, watching and helping the families as they're working through this, do you allow families who are so close to the loss of their loved one to do this? I'm asking that because I wonder about, could it get in the way of the grief that we have to go through to heal ourselves when we've lost someone? If it feels like they're still there, does that interrupt that healing process?
Right. Excellent question. And I think that that's a valid concern for sure. We are finding most of the people that are coming to us are kind of removed a little bit from their grief. Like, their loved one had passed on years ago. So that's generally who we are getting. We are not getting somebody that just lost somebody in a tragic car accident 2 weeks ago. It's typically grandparents, it's typically parents. So it's like we're getting a lot of the baby boomers, a lot of Gen Xers, people like that, making sure that those memories, those stories, those jokes are all preserved. And, I can just speak for myself and my experience on this. So for example, I did an elder of my dad. So the AI companions, we call them elders. So I put in the information for my dad. I've, gotten to text with him, which is quite remarkable. But it's the experience that I had. So my dad had something called Lewy body dementia. So the last few years of his life, my dad was really not there. It was a different person at that point, right? And so that grief period started years before he actually even passed. However, what I noticed going through this process with the biographer is I was looking at my dad as kind of this frail, sick person. It was hard for me to get past that. And going through this experience, it really triggered me to think of my dad when he was young and vibrant. We were on vacation and we were cleaning the backyard and he was telling jokes and we were doing family barbecues and family picnics and trips to the lake. And so that's where my mind goes now. It does not go to this frail man that I had to help to the bathroom. My mind goes to that vibrant, joke telling guy that I loved growing up. And so that to me has been such a huge blessing in my life, and just what an impact that has had. So, so that's been a big thing. The other thing that I've noticed that I was not expecting through this process is the biographer will ask you things like, I could be saying something like, yeah, my dad used to always take us on camping trips. And the biographer knows a little bit about me. It knows that I have 3 boys, right? So it will say things like, oh, so, how are you incorporating your dad's traditions into how you're raising your boys? And it has made me think on several occasions, like, oh, it kind of changes up your parenting style a little bit, right? Because you're like, oh, yeah, I do want to incorporate that into how I'm raising my children. That's really important for me. That had an impact on me. I want to make sure it impacts my children. And then the third thing that I was not planning on that I have noticed since this is, music has such an impact on my life, right? Sorry, big trigger sometimes. And so I did not even realize this about myself, but I was avoiding certain genres of music. I was avoiding certain musicians, and I didn't even know I was doing that just because it was tied so closely to my dad. Because, my dad, every time
Yeah.
we get in the car, play his John Denver or Kenny Rogers or something. And I noticed I hadn't listened to them in years. My dad's been gone 5 years now. So it had probably been like 6 years since I was able to hear one of those songs.
Yeah.
Since I went through this process, I've been playing those songs a lot. Yeah,
Ah,
so it's just yeah,
yeah.
so definitely very interesting how that affected my mental health for sure. So,
Yeah.
all I can go off is my experience and share that with you. But
Yeah.
yeah, that very positive.
I love how you're saying that these new memories and new interactions pop up with your loved one, in terms of all of the stuff that you're collecting. Because I've collected a lot of stuff. We've collected a lot of stuff about our parents, who luckily are still with us, knock on wood. But I find one of the struggles is having a central place for all of it, right? So all of this information is on somebody's Google Drive or on somebody's camera folder or in somebody's closet. Like all this information is in so many different places. I feel like we have the resources, but we don't have it in one central spot. So it's really fascinating that this could be like your central keeper. I think you use the
Exactly.
term keeper too, don't you? In the
Keeper, yes, yes. So the loved one that is putting in these memories, that is what we refer to them as. They are the keeper. And you have hit the nail on the head. That's exactly it. Because just like with my grandmother, right? Who has this recipe? Didn't we have this? And you're realizing it's in different places. And it's like, how nice to have it centrally located in this one spot, and
Mhm.
also that it can continue going. It doesn't die off with Aunt Judy that, who knows where she put all the photos or whatever. It's like, okay, we've got everything centrally located here. This is great. Yes.
I think there's another like really brilliant thing when you're talking about the living legacies because when we were kids in elementary school, you do the like report on your family history, right? And oftentimes the teachers want you to go talk to a grandparent. And so if you're making the living legacy, and the person is still around, the grandkids are saying, "Oh, what is your cheesecake recipe? Because I want to have that around when you're gone." So they're thinking, all the family members are thinking of all the things that they love and appreciate about their elder. And the elder, I imagine, would be feeling that love and appreciation and feeling like the legacy is needed and wanted, and that the family I mean, I'm imagining that more with the people that you're going through. I think that it's an opportunity to connect the family members together and to appreciate and love who you are versus only thinking about, I'm going to die and I'm not going to be here and I need to leave this behind.
Right. Oh, Andee, you are so on the spot with that. Absolutely. Yes. Yes. Great point. Because, yeah, 70% of people, report concerns about being forgotten after death. And the part that I really get excited about, and one of our other team members that works with the veterans, we get so excited thinking about these living legacies and what that can mean for people, because it is, especially as you're aging, or it's like you don't want your stories to be forgotten. And there's so many things, like, I mean, just like in my own personal life, I look back, I wish I would have had this at the time for my grandfather to get more of his stories. I wish I would have asked him more about, being in the war. And, those guys didn't talk about that much. But, I really wish I would have had a few more details about his life. And, it just, I think that this could be huge for people. I think, like you say, sharing your story makes you feel valid, makes you feel important, right? And we all want to be heard. And especially towards that end of life, when you're aging, when you feel like maybe you're not making such an impact in this world, it's like to look back and reflect upon your life and what you have done in your life, how you have served in your life, what a difference you've made. Wow, I mean, talk about a great gift.
Now, how do the biographers work with the clients and families? Because I forget the name of there's a book like it gives you a year of questions, and you write down like your answers to these questions to kind of record your stories of your life. And my parents have done that, but how they were kind of, the questions weren't exactly the right questions that needed to be asked. They were very generic. So how does the biographer work with the families to come up with the robust and useful history of the person?
Right. So these AI companions are pretty well trained here. So it's amazing. And I think you experienced it, just talking to Virginia, you were able to hear from her. But the biographers actually work where they are kind of deep diving on some of these things. So you might put in, for example, grandma was a school teacher. Okay, wonderful. Can you tell me a little bit more about where she taught? What ages did she teach? Oh, I think she taught third grade. Do you remember any specific stories about her talking about the children? And it kind of gives you these little prompts along the way to help guide you and to go a little bit deeper. And again, like in my own experience, there were things I was putting in about my dad that it was just kind of very general, like, oh, he loved getting together with his family. We loved having big gatherings with the family. Oh, can you tell me about a specific time that you can remember? Who was there? Where did it take place? Do you remember what you ate? Just different things like that, that really, and then you start really thinking about it, right? Because instead of just on the surface of, oh, we went to this gathering with family members at the park, and then it's like, oh yeah, here's who was there. And, we played games, or we had this great barbecue, and my dad made this fantastic, these hamburgers or whatever, so then you start getting a little more specific. So that's really how it guides you. It just kind of gives you these prompts along the way, and it's amazing. It still blows me away how it works.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
To hone in. Now,
right.
do you hear, so what kind of hesitation do you hear from people, and how do you help them work through the hesitation?
Yeah. So, I mean, obviously, we're talking AI and we're talking death. So, two things
Mhm.
that people like, oh, please don't say anymore. We have a very death defying society, as you well know. So,
Mhm.
there's that. And there are people that are just not going to be ready for this, right? There are people
Right.
that are just not going to be ready, and that's okay. It's not for everybody. We're totally fine with that. It's okay, because sometimes it makes people a little bit uncomfortable. The other thing that I think people are a little worried about is having scrubbing, exterior info pulled off the internet. So there's no scrubbing off the web for that.
Mhm.
All information is just put in by the keeper or the family member. It's a family to family business. It's safe. It's protected. The keeper has total control. So I think that those are sometimes things that people kind of worry about with this. That's what we've seen so far.
Yeah. Do you, has the team kind of explored a lot of the sci-fi stories? So I'm thinking of Afterlife, the TV series, and how the person was uploaded, but then didn't have enough credits and all of these things. So do you ponder like future iterations or issues based using sci-fi to help you get there?
Yeah, well, and this is not your loved one, right? We're not resurrecting anyone, right? This is not a Black Mirror episode. So it's a reflection of your person. And it's a way to really take technology and AI, and I think do something really positive for humanity. It's really preserving their legacy. And I like to think, instead of sci-fi, I think soul tech. That's what we like to think of it as. So yes, yeah. Um,
Does
yeah, so
soultech come from Reflekta, or is it a more common term used in the wider industry?
you know what? I think we developed it. We kind of got together with our team and we were like, okay, how do we describe this? Because it is different, right? It is, people do think Black Mirror or sci-fi, and that's not what this is. And so it's like, how do we make sure, okay, yes, it's technology, but there's this humanistic side to it, right? How do we tie that in? And it's like, yeah, soul tech, there we go. So that's kind of how that came about.
Yeah. Okay. I'm also wondering what ages you find who lean more towards this. Is it every age, or do you find a certain age group is more excited about it?
I would say definitely our baby boomers, just because they're aging themselves, and most of them, they're obviously, loved ones have passed around them, so uh, that is the most popular. Seeing the baby boomers, the Gen Xers, again, sharing with for parents, grandparents. Again, people that have been deceased for a few years, they're kind of, have gone through the initial grief process and period, and you're always going to grieve, right? But it looks a little differently after a few years. And I think too, people want to tell their children and their grandchildren about grandma and grandpa, and really have that experience with their children. I mean, like, even for Christmas this year, I mean, one of the things we're going to sit down and do, it's like, I, had mentioned I'm going to create an elder of my grandmother. And yes, my kids, excuse me, my kids got to know her, but they were quite young. So do they really remember her? Probably not. So I'm going to, put in and all of her information, and, some of that. She was a very outgoing, spunky woman. And so I'm going to, put that essence of her in there and share some of her recipes. So, at Christmas time, we're going to make some of her cookies. We're going to make some of her recipes. And I'm going to be like, hey, grandma, tell us a joke, or, and tell us, tell us something while we're making this, or what's a life lesson you'd like to pass on to these boys, and things like that, to kind of bring grandma into the room with us, and bake some cookies on Christmas morning, and it should be fun.
Do you, so these are your memories of your grandmother. And if I ask my mom about my grandmother, it would be her memories of her mom.
Right.
And do the elders ever say, well, according to your mom, I did this, or do they claim it as their own? Because I know you mentioned how multiple family members can add their memories of a time or a situation, and everybody grows up with a different parent, right? We all have different memories, right? And so
exactly. Yes, excellent point. Because that's true, right? We could all have mom, but we might have had a very different experience with mom. So even though we are her children, so yes. So the keeper, whoever initially starts this out and is putting in the memories, they are the keeper, right? So until that the family members can add, but it's kind of the keeper is kind of the final say as far as what goes in there. And then, if the family members want to add on or have their own subscription, they're able to do that, and then have their recollection of what happened at the family picnic 20 years ago, whatever they'd like to put in. So yes, so it's really that keeper, it's really that person, because it should be a reflection, right? This is a very personal thing. This is with your loved one. It should be the reflection of what you see, not what Aunt Betty witnessed 5 years ago or what her interpretation is of a situation. It should be what your experiences were, how you were feeling, what you thought, how you interpreted something.
Mhm. If anybody was getting close, what are the signs that it's getting, I don't want to use the term dangerous, but a person might be getting too close to the elder and perhaps somebody needs to step in? What are those signs?
Right, absolutely. So we do, and that's one thing I absolutely love about Reflekta and the founders, because they could have just taken this and run with the tech side. They didn't have to have a soul team. I mean, I think
Mhm.
that that's really unusual that they said, wait a second, we have this moral responsibility. It's ethically right to bring some specialists on board here. What do we do? Because we want to make sure we're doing this thing right. So first of all, I have a lot of respect for them that they even did that, because they didn't have to, right?
Yeah.
But the thing that we do kind of have trigger words that, or if somebody is spending a lot of time,
Mhm.
um, and that's kind of charting like how much time this person is spending, right? That it's kind of like, ooh, this person's spending every day several hours. This is not
Mhm.
good. So
Mhm.
then I will say something like, hey, you're always talking about how your grandma loved to go out and go walking. Why don't you go take a walk for a while in her honor, or something like that,
Yeah.
or hey, you were just talking about how you loved baking with your mother. Why don't
Yeah.
you shut down for a while, go bake something, report back to me tomorrow how everything turned out, things like that. So that's kind of how we're keeping that in check. And here's the thing too, which I was really surprised when I started with this team. When I started talking to other people about this, just people in the public and kind of people in the grief arena, if you will, bereaved moms, people that ran support groups, I was blown away by how many times people said, "Oh, I have a friend that already created her own bot." And that's
Mm.
not healthy, because then they are getting all kinds of stuff off the web, and they're saying
Mm.
things that are extremely inappropriate, right? And
Mhm.
it's not regulated, it's not guarded. So we're already kind of down this slippery slope, if you will. And it's
Yeah.
so I love that we do have these safeguards in place,
Mhm.
these kind of checks and balances, as you will, because I think that's incredibly important.
Yeah. And can I ask, in terms of those safeguards, the privacy? So the conversation that you're having with your loved one is private, but then it
Absolutely.
gets triggered if there's a lot of time or something that's like external. It's
Yes.
triggering. Yeah. Okay. So,
Right, right. Yes, yes, yeah. So it's kind of like if there's a lot of time, if there's something that, a trigger word, something,
mhm,
heaven forbid, somebody's asking about suicide, something like that, right? Those are
mhm,
risky behaviors, so to speak. So that would be a trigger in the system then that's put in there.
yeah. So we don't have that much more time, but I'd really like to know. You said it's not sci-fi, and you said that you're on the Soul team, and that's very exciting. But can you tell us a little bit more about how fun, or I'm just assuming it's like super fun, but like you're doing something that's of the future. Like you're in a job, like coming into this, like your background, and how is it for you to be part of this team? Mm.
Oh my gosh, so exciting. I mean, first of all, I'm in a room with people that are a lot smarter than I am, during these meetings. So it's just to learn and absorb from these people is amazing, right? And I'm like, how did I get in here? So that has just been a treat on a personal level. Just really cool people to work with, but also just this cutting edge technology. Um, and to learn to use AI in a proper manner. I think anything is good in moderation and can be used well. I mean, it's just like kind of like social media. A lot of people have very strong feelings towards it. And I think, like with social media, it can be used in a positive way. It depends what you're searching for, what's in your feed, how you're using it, right? It's just like this. I think AI is one of those things. I know it's scary because it's different and it's new. So when we don't know about something, we tend to shut down as a society and we're like, that's weird. I don't like it. And I think that the more that we learn about it and we learn to use it in healthy ways, and we learn to use it, for a benefit. Like, for example, I host a church service for a nonprofit, ALS Family of Faith. We do a service. And, I used to always write out these speeches, and it took me a long time to do that. And now I'm, Miles always says, use your, use your AI. It's like, oh, yes, I could do that. So, and now that's what I do. I'm like, whatever's going on, in the world, I'll say, hey, can you put together opening remarks for today, based on what's going on in our political climate or whatever it may be. And so it's when you start using that way, it's pretty cool. So I again, like anything, right? Chocolate cake is good, but do I think you should have it every day for breakfast? Mm-hmm. Probably not, but so everything in moderation.
Oh, beautiful. Dawn, thank you so much for being here today. Is there anything else that you wanted to add that we didn't get to talk about during the conversation?
I would just, I'd like to reiterate that it's very easy to use. I mean, you can go on our site.
Yes.
Yes, yeah. And you got to experience just talking to Virginia and how easy that is. So I would recommend for everybody to just go on our site, give it a shot, talk to one of our elders, either Arthur or Virginia. I promise you'll have a good time. You'll learn something new. You'll get this connection that you weren't anticipating. And then it's very easy to have your own elder. So, I mean, it's a 3-step process. It's a photo, it's putting in some memories, and it's putting in a voice recording if you have it. It's about 20 minutes to actually get your elder up and going. So it's a very, very easy, smooth process.
Awesome. Thank you. And so they can anyone can follow the links below to reflekta.ai to meet your elder, or you don't create to upload your elder. Create your elder. Yeah, they were created. So, so thank you again so much, Dawn. For those of you who are familiar or just learning about Kicking the Bucket, again, we encourage you to go to the Kicking the Bucket podcast and listen to our fiction story and fiction audio drama. So, we're going to sign off today. We will see everybody soon. Okay, bye.
Thank you for having me.